Hi, you guys. Good evening. Good evening. How are you? Hey, Chris. How are you? Hi, Angie. I'm so happy that you guys are here. We're going to have a really dope live today. Good evening. Hey, Terrence. Hey, T. Hey, Imani. How are you? So good to see you guys. I am ready for ours next week. I'm really looking forward to it. Hey, Letitia. Yes. You want? Is that code for you want all the smoke, Chris? Hey, Imani. How are you? So I'm going to pin the topic for today. Why are men misleading? While we have that under discussion, why don't you guys tell me in the chat why you think you ordering some crab legs? That is so funny. Okay, you better order them crab legs. I had fun making that video. Hey, Rich, how are you? How's it going, big bro? Yes, you guys, yeah, I had so much fun making that video. Right in the restaurant too, like with all the nerve that I had. How are you guys? So I have the topic pinned. So while we're waiting for Allison, why don't you guys tell me in the chat, why do you guys think that men are misleading, and do you think that men are misleading? Hey, Greg. I almost said Gregory. I corrected myself. Hey, Greg. How are you? That's my end of the week snack. It's my reward. Where do you get your crab legs at? Listen, you guys, the best crab legs in the world. I don't even want to tell y'all, but I'll tell y'all. Hey, Allison. Hey, Siobhan. Is the boil. I'm addicted to the boil, y'all. Literally. Voodoo crab. Where's that? Amani, I think me and you need to do Oh, Greg, you saying chill? What you mean chill, Greg? Greg, don't have Ratchet Cassie come out, okay? Please. I'm trying to connect Allison. Let me invite Allison. Yes, Siobhan. Siobhan already knows. Like, oh my girl.
Hi, beautiful.
My girl. How are you, honey?
I'm fine. Thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. Your hair looks so nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was going to do a side part, but it was a side part named.
No worries. You look good, baby. You always look good.
Thank you. Who is Walls Akins? Who's that? Are we taking people in today? So we're gonna have. I don't remember exactly what I put in my stories.
In regards to what?
So this is a while ago. This must have been maybe back in December or top of January. That's how this whole topic, I like pinned it in my head. I put something in my stories and you were asking me a question about, like, you know, why do men, I think I asked the question, I made a statement and offered people to respond. And so one of the things that came is we talked about men being misleading. And so then me and you like had a side conversation about that. And so I thought this would be a dope opportunity because I primarily work with men, you primarily work with women. And so we have different experiences of the victimization kind of story thing happening that we try to get our clients out of. So I thought it would be a dope opportunity for you to like champion the woman's experiences as I champion some of the men's experiences as we hash out this whole misleading thing and why it's all so confusing. So before we officially get started, why don't you introduce yourself to some of my followers that's coming in. I'll introduce myself to your followers that's coming in, and then we get started.
Sure. So good evening, everyone. My name is Alison. I'm a certified dating and relationship coach, and I primarily work with singles to help them find the love and commitment that they deserve.
Hi, you guys. I'm Alison, Miss Cassandra, and I'm a men's advocate and relationship coach. And I really help men around their self-esteem and their confidence so they can become the men that they really believe that they are inside. All right? So let's get started.
Yes.
So in your experience, Allison, when you're working with women, you often find that their experiences that men can come across as misleading. right?
Well, I wouldn't say often. I would
Okay.
say there's a fair share. I think that in all honesty, I think that there's an exaggeration on how much or how frequently men mislead, and we could define what misleading means in just a moment. I think there are instances that are worthy, and then I think there are instances of women not doing their due diligence or blatantly not listening or asking the right questions, which leads them to be misled on their own. So even though I think there is validity behind the statement, I think that there are a lot of men who mislead, a lot of instances of misleading. I don't think it's as frequent as women like to report, if that makes sense.
Totally. So can you like recall? So let's define misleading before we actually get into the nitty gritty. So when women feel that men are being misleading, what are they actually saying that is being said or not said that has been confused?
So like the obvious big ticket items would be if that man is involved in a relationship, right? So if he has a committed girlfriend, we're assuming we're talking about heterosexual relationships in these cases. If he has a girlfriend, someone who he has told that he is committed to, or a woman who believes that she's committed to him, however, he is still on the dating scene. If that man is married, legally married to someone, and they don't necessarily share that information, or if they have children. So those are the big ticket items. Those are the ones that I think are a lot more valid. Those are the ones that I think are undeniable. I think you can't argue against that, right?
Totally.
But what I find, and the stuff that is arguable and the stuff that I do hold women accountable to, is that there are enough instances that could save a woman's heart where they're not asking the right questions and they're not listening. Okay. And so what I mean by that is, if I like to ask the questions that are clear as day, and it doesn't make you masculine or tough, but it just makes things obvious and clear so no one has any questions. So I'm going to ask things like, do you have children? I'm going to ask, right? I'm going to ask, is there a woman who believes that you are her man? I'm going to ask, are you legally married? I'm going to ask, and not to say that people can't lie, but they're less inclined to lie when you ask very clearly and when you ask early. Less inclined. I'm going to ask, what are your intentions with our budding relationship? I'm going to ask, what are you looking for on this dating app? I'm going to ask, do you believe in the institution of marriage? I'm going to ask, do you want or desire children? Many times the issue is that women are afraid. At least this is what I've seen and what I've heard. I don't want to come across too aggressive. I don't want to push him away. I don't want to scare him off.
They tell women to do. They tell us. Sorry, my whole tripod just fell. They tell women not to not ask those questions, to let it rock and let it flow, and that's why women have become scared of asking those questions.
But what I tell them instead is that if there is a man who runs away from you because you've asked him what are his general beliefs on the institution of marriage, if he now ghosts you because you've just asked, what are your general beliefs? I didn't say, do you want to marry Alison or Cassandra? I said, what are your thoughts on marriage in 2022? Do you think that the institution has any value? Right? I asked that question. Now you ghost me. Well, I'm so glad that you did, sir. I'm so glad that you ran away on our first date or in our first conversation, our first text. Like, please run away if you are not interested in the things that I'm interested in. Rather that than find out 6 months or a year or 2 years down the line that he says, nah, marriage is whack and I'm not down. Now what? Now you're here trying to figure out in your mind or heart what's more important, the institution or the man. So I know you said that the purpose was to champion, right? Like we're kind of like championing each side, but there is a lot to say about women doing their due diligence and asking very clear questions. And there's no guarantee you'll get the truth all the time, but you're more likely to get the truth if you ask clear and you ask early.
Right. And one of the things that I'll say, this is I'm just going to go ahead and just pop the bubble very, very quickly and not even build up to it. One of the things that I think that women are not equipped to deal with when it's dealing with men, that adds in the misleading aspect of it. And before I even get into, let me just say this. Yes, there are men who will lie about whether or not they're in a relationship or whether or not they have children or certain things that they think is private, when really it's just this is your life status. And, what are we actually doing here? You're clearly, not wanting to be honest and truthful. That is a guy to me. That's not necessarily a man standing in his power. Because as a man, you should be able to be upfront. I would say the same thing for a woman. If you are a lady or a, you know, or female, or I know people have, like, females a curse word or whatever, but let's get real. We checking off boxes here. You're female and somebody asks you about your life status, if you have children, and you lie, you blatantly lie, you might need to sit back for a bit and come off the game, because what are you actually doing here? Like, we just need to be honest. However, this is the bubble that I'm about to burst. And a lot of people are not going to like this, but this is, in fact, this is factual, scientifically true, and it happens. Many times for men, grown men, when they share information and their intentions, they meant it when they said it. And women have issues with that, because sometimes women want to hold a man's feet to the fire on what he has said, without acknowledging that sometimes things change. And the things that often change is not necessarily because he changed his mind, but because of something that she did that caused him to reevaluate and reassess the situation, say, okay, you don't belong in that bucket. And I'll tell you how when I first heard this, and I've said this before on my lives before, was when I talked to my dad about love and relationships and marriage. And my father is like, and he's out the closet, you know, former gigolo. Like, he will tell people straight up what he used to do. And he has 3 daughters. So he was always telling us, he was always putting us up on game, because he was like, I don't want my girls out there, you know, sins of the father. And so I was just like, okay, Dad, if you tricked girls to do whatever you wanted, right? You were misleading women, right? You misled women, and you would do the flowers and the dates and get them a bag and take them to the fanciest restaurants with all these ill intentions, right? And you would do that for a woman that you were interested in. How can I, as a lady, be able to tell whether or not a man is faking the funk, or, as for this case, misleading? And my dad said, you'll never know. I didn't like that. So I'm like, I need to know. He said, I'm going to tell you why. When I met my wife, who he's with right now, they've been together for over 30 years. I had the intention of having a fling with her. That was my complete and full intention. But her character made me change my mind about her. He always knew he wanted to get married. He wanted to get remarried. That was a fact. He wanted family. That was a fact. Who he was going to choose for that is up in the air. It just depends on how you come across. That's the part that I feel women have an issue with. And so if a man says, I do want to get married, that doesn't mean he wants to get married to you.
Yes.
You feel me? And so that's when women, sometimes they take things that men say to heart. And they really probably shouldn't. So my argument on the whole thing about men misleading, outside of like the extreme aspects of like blatant lying. Right, blatant lying. That what it is a lot of times it's the character, it's how women come across, and they go bananas. That's, you know, so that's my take on like the whole misleading thing, that I think that women are not prepared to actually swallow that part.
So this is the thing, right? So let's say I take that at face value. Let's say, Cassandra, you are a licensed social worker, you have your master's degree, you've done the research, and what you're saying is statistically accurate. Let's say we take that. That does not excuse that man from now correcting or restating or reestablishing the status of that relationship, right? Correct. So even if let's say, I'm going with what you're saying is accurate, which I still slightly disagree with. Even if we say that you're right? So, and because in essence, what you're saying is that it's the woman's fault. The woman did something wrong, and this is why he changed his mind. I can bet there are instances where he may have changed his mind because of other instances, but fine. So even if that's the case, and the woman did something outrageous, she, broke up the windows in his car because she was jealous. She disrespected his mother, like whatever. She called his job, got him in trouble, whatever. If she did something along those lines, then I believe as a human being, it's his responsibility to clearly reclassify that relationship. Totally. So if his intention was like, I would like to be married, I would like to have children, and I potentially see that with you. Because in the beginning, you don't know, right? You got to tell. So I can potentially see that with you. And then this woman did something that was egregious. First of all, he should stop messing with her. Because if whatever she did was so problematic that now his beliefs or opinions of her has dropped so significantly, then you shouldn't be effing her. Because if you get her pregnant, now you stuck with her for life, and then everybody wants to complain about the problematic baby mother. But if you saw a behavior that was so problematic that you have changed your mind and your heart about this woman, then you should not be dealing with her anymore. And then when you do, and then now that anger now manifests into whatever kind of continued mistreatment, abuse of you, financial abuse, taking your children away, blah, blah, blah. Whose fault is that? Declassify. Make that clear if you're over it.
I 100% agree. And this is why a lot of men need to surround themselves with other men, because only other men, someone said that we look alike. We figured that out one day when we met in person. We were like, hold on a second. What's going on here? Men need to hang out with real men. Because real men won't allow men to carry on like that, because they understand the sequence and consequences of their actions. Unfortunately, a lot of real men don't make themselves accessible to men who are in the process of dating or in the process of figuring things out. It is very difficult to navigate these waters. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I had a really good friend of mine who dated a beautiful, wonderful, splendid lady. I was rooting for her. Like, get your king, girl. When I say this girl failed miserably, I mean, you want to talk about explosion. You know why? Because she experiences anxiety like a lot of women do. And she allowed her anxiety to get the best of her because she has been abandoned or dropped in the past. And for fear that it was happening because he didn't answer one of her text messages sooner, quicker, fast enough, she just spiraled out of control. This happens quite frequently. And again, it is also because sometimes this is something that men do wrong, which is they basically advertise themselves for something that they cannot keep up with. For example, good morning, queen. Good morning, beautiful. Good morning every single day. And, how long can you keep with that charade?
Right.
After a while, she gets used to it. Of course, she's going to expect a good morning. And of course, if you don't give her the good morning, she's wondering, well, what's going on here?
And who else is getting the good morning now if I'm not getting it?
Huh? Right.
And who else is getting the good morning since I'm not getting it? Because you was giving it to me freely, so that means clearly somebody else is getting it now.
Hello, exactly. That's the train of thought of a woman. But as a guy, sometimes what happens for men, and it's a real, literal scientific experience, which is that they get bogged down, and separation is a good thing. They need to take a step back. They need to take a pause. And these are the parts where women need to learn how to flow with men, and men need to acknowledge what women need. So when a man needs some space, he naturally needs it. It's never going to change. He could be married to you. He's going to need space. He needs to get away from the estrogen because it's so much. It's too much. And he just wants to get away for a minute. Just chill out for a second and trust that he'll come back. Trust that you're bomb enough, you're beautiful enough, you're bright enough, you're enough that he'll come back, and have your own standards around what's too long. And men also need to be able to communicate, hey, I'm feeling a little overwhelmed, or I just feel like I need to decompress. You know what I'm saying? Good morning, but I might be offline for a little bit, but I'll be back, before the day is done to check up on you. I just got to decompress for a moment. Men and women just need to learn how to work together instead of expecting the opposite sex to operate just like them.
Absolutely. And that's why they're the opposite sex, because they're the opposite, right? So they're not supposed to function in the same way. And I mean, trust me, I drive that point home a lot, that if you want someone of the opposite sex, again, assuming that we're talking about heterosexual relationships, if you want to be with someone of the opposite sex, then their behavior should be the opposite of yours in most cases, yin and yang. But even in that yin and yang, there's still a circle of white and there's still a circle of black, right? So that's the balance of masculinity and femininity. No one should be on any 100% extreme in one or the other direction. There was a comment that was made that I want to scroll back to a little bit. And someone said that women are known for being emotional. And I just want to speak on that just a little bit, because I guess it's me being emotional. It's a little offensive. And the reason why I say that is because society, somebody has branded emotional as crying or upset. And I know a lot of emotional men because they fight, they shoot each other. You step on a foot in the wrong direction, it's a problem, right? And so there's been a branding that has occurred, that the emotions that are usually associated with women, those are emotions, but anger, which is normally an emotion that men emote, is not an emotion. Men are emotional.
Right.
And I don't want anyone to be confused here. Like, you know, they like to say, you know, women are emotional creatures. Human beings are emotional creatures.
Correct.
And so I want to be a part of the rebranding that emotion only means crying. And
Right.
when a man punches a wall, he's not being emotional.
Correct.
Trust me, that's an emotion too.
Totally. I'm so happy that you caught that and you addressed that, because it is true. And emotions get a bad rep. And if we actually paid attention to emotions, then, you know, again, men and women would learn how to leverage our strengths instead of fighting against each other. Sometimes a woman's emotions or gut feelings could save the whole freaking day. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, one of the things that I talk to men about is when a woman has her intuition. That's a blessing. Mm-hmm. A woman being in tune with her emotions are a blessing. When you have a child with her, don't you want her to be able to provide emotions to this child? Like, babies are known to die when they're not receiving enough emotion, enough care, mm-hmm. enough hugs and kisses. Like, they legit die. So mm-hmm. That's, again, when people, and I agree with you, sometimes people, they use that as a curse word. Oh, you're just being emotional. Look at you being emotional. Okay, but as soon as a girl is not being emotional, that's the issue too. So mm-hmm. I totally agree with that. So we just welcoming everybody, remind you guys that we're talking about why men are misleading. So if you had a misleading experience or comment, go ahead and drop it below. This is Alison, and she is a relationship coach for women, and I am a relationship coach for men and women, but I do prefer to work with men. So yes. So one of the things that I recently learned, this was crazy. I did not know. I didn't know it was a thing, and I started talking to some guys, which is this. Sometimes this goes back to what I said before about when a man sets his intentions, he means it when he said it in that moment, like 100% meant it. Mm-hmm. In other words, his intentions was not snake-like. His intentions was not misleading. He's not trying to get anything out of you. And I can't remember the term. I have to research it. But apparently there's this thing, and you guys that are coming in, gentlemen, tell me if this is true or not, if this is cap. This guy said in an interview that sometimes he doesn't even really know if he likes a woman until after he skeets. Mm-hmm. Like, he can legit really like her, and then he'll have sex with her, and because the penis does the picking. His penis picks her. His penis, one brain is connected to the other brain. He's thinking, I really, really, really like you. Has sex with her, and then he looks at her and he's just like, that all like grayed out, faded out. You guys in the comments, you tell me if that's cap or no cap. I have no idea. I asked a few guys, not too many, but some of them said that is true, that has happened.
Is it because they, and guess what? Even though that sounds outrageous, I'm not even that upset, because mm-hmm. I'm going to frame it in the way that I say it to my clients. So what I tell my clients is that you have to have a list of non-negotiables, right? Mm-hmm. Those are the traits and behaviors that a person must have in order for them to be what you consider an appropriate match for you. So right. If they value sex that's exciting or sex, you know, whatever, sex that they enjoy, if that's a value of theirs, and after they've had that sex, they realize that person maybe doesn't have the experience or the know-how or whatever, then I can imagine that as for that reason, that would be a process of elimination. Just like if a qualifier was if they were Christian and you find out that they're not, or just like if one of your non-negotiables is that they're hardworking and you right. find that they're not. So framing it that way, that doesn't sound outrageous. It doesn't. Okay. But is that what they say? Is it that because the sex was not enjoyable, or like what is it about?
From the interview, it just seems like it's a second experience of it. The girl goes from being bright and brilliant to just fades to gray, black and white.
It seems like they have a poor relationship with women, just like emotionally or mentally, that a woman is virtuous and valuable before sex, and as soon as she's had sex with them, then she's dirty. That's what it seems like. Again, I'm not an expert. I've not done the research.
It's just like the allure is gone.
Mm-hmm. So then but if that's the case, the allure is going to be gone for every single woman they're ever with. So they're never going to commit to anybody, because they're going to have sex with every woman they're with eventually.
That's what they're saying. It's something that they can't even put a finger on it. They don't know why it happens, and they don't want it to happen. They don't mm-hmm. need for it to happen. They're not looking forward to it happening. They want that pizzazz to keep happening. Mm-hmm. But when it happens, that they legit will be like, damn, yo, I thought I really liked her. Like, they legit, it's a real actual experience. Somebody said that happens to women too. I can't relate, you know, I don't know, mm-hmm. but I don't know if that has to do with the sex or whatever it is or what, but that again goes back to another aspect of, you know, it's kind of like, so somebody had a podcast when they were talking about like women's vaginas, right? I know we're gonna be off base here, but I'm gonna bring it back. And she said, you guys have been having sex and dealing with PUSSY for years, and you still don't know how it works. Like, at this point, if you love the P power, you should know how it works if you want to please it. And so I think that there's just a lot of miscommunication between the sexes and how we operate and work. And so we get disappointed because we end up projecting how we think they should move and function based on what we know about ourselves. Like, if I get a car, I can't expect to give this car the kind of fuel that provides me with energy and the ability to go. I got to give the car that gasoline, change the oil. I got to figure out what this car needs before I make an assumption that this car doesn't work. And I think both men and women do that a lot. Men are also bank on women to sometimes be very heady or logical, or sometimes they're banking on women to like not be invested in their emotions or their gut feelings. They feel like they're too anxious. But a lot of times it's because of how we're wired. And it's not people take those things personal. Let me see what some of the comments are. Men who know men know who they want. They play games with who they want. That sometimes happens. They need to stop having sex because maybe it's a sexual energy exchange, is another comment. Let me see. Let me scroll some.
I saw someone say that therapy would help them to figure out exactly where the disconnect is. And that's where people like you and I come in, right? Like, I'm not a therapist, but people in the mental health space. And there's a lot of shame. And actually, I thank God over the last couple of years, there's been a lot of work in the Black community about speaking about therapy and reaching out to mental health professionals to help us. Like, there is no shame in reaching out. If there is something you can't describe, right? Like, you can't even put your finger on it. You just need someone to help you figure out the words sometimes. And once you figure out the words and you're able to implement your own resolution, if not, you continue to get those sessions in. But nonetheless, there is a disconnect. But I will also say, and we're a part of this problem, unfortunately, I think that social media hypes up a lot of the conflicts and the issues that men and women, particularly Black men and Black women, are having amongst each other. Again, maybe I was just out of the know, but it just seems, I don't know, I just feel like it's give me an example. I'm just talking about like like even us, this conversation or the podcast or the YouTubes, the manosphere, like all of this stuff that's been created that makes it seem as though there's so many issues between us. And I don't think so. It's kind of like, I heard, I think it was Method Man who said this on an interview, that the beef between Biggie and Tupac was between Biggie and Tupac. The media made it the East Coast, West Coast drama, the East Coast, West Coast war, the East Coast, West Coast beef. He said it wasn't East Coast, West Coast. It was one man who happened to be signed to a label that was on the West Coast, who's from the East Coast. I think he's from Harlem or something. Tupac originally born. And then somebody who's from Brooklyn. But when us, now social media being the issue at hand, right? Because it's no longer 1996. I think that we're a part of hyping up an issue that I'm not sure is as dramatic or problematic as we like to make it seem.
That's fair. I do agree that we do tend to amplify stuff. But when somebody's heart is broken, it feels amplified. The whole world feels like it's crumbling and it's crashing down. And I think for people like me and you and therapists and people who have a focus on dating relationships, it's like, yo, we know what love can do. We know what legacy can do. We know what, when two minds come together, what they can produce. And we just are sick and tired of the nonsense already. Like, either you want to be together or you don't. Either you're invested or you're not. Either we really do it. Like, if you're going to be married, do marriage. If you're going to be in a relationship, do relationship. Like, what I think people are so invested in feeling good that they're not interested in doing life. Relationship is not it's not a game, although it can be fun. But people treat it to fill the void and the holes that they're experiencing due to their own lack. You know, I can't tell you how many times people be like, oh, I don't feel like she loves me. I don't feel like he loves me. It's like, but do you love yourself? Like, how much are you invested in like, did you say to your partner, and that's another thing about being misled. Men and women do it. I don't feel loved and I don't feel like he loves me. What makes you feel loved? Well, I don't know. Well, then if you don't know, how is your partner, like, how are you
supposed to figure it out?
Yeah,
yes.
Your partner accountable to make sure that you feel loved. Well, I don't feel safe. Okay, so what is it that you want? And I think that to what some of the comments that were saying, like someone said, like, I think it was Siobhan, she said, I think she was referring to any man who's like having sex and he skeets and he realizes, oh, I don't like the girl, is a connection issue. I agree with that. I think that people are seeking to feel connected outside of themselves and hold a person responsible for feeling fulfillment, and are not concerned with feeling fulfilled prior to entering into a relationship, which is the way I think it should go.
Yep. Understood. And just to take a step back to our previous point, I think that it's important that we have conversations like this. Folks who are actually a part of the mental health space, folks who are licensed, folks who are certified, folks who want what's best for couples, folks who want what's best for our community, particularly for the Black community, if that's a community that you're part of or whatever community you're part of. Like, it's important that we continue to have these conversations. And I think it's also important that we remind people, and I do this all the time, that you are what you consume. You are what you eat, right? So we all accept that in terms of diet. So if you are what you eat in terms of your diet, then what do you call your social media thread? You call it a feed. That means the things that you watch is feeding you, right? Feeding you emotionally, feeding you mentally. Yes. We can choose to watch what we want to watch. We can choose to follow who we want to follow. We can choose to repost and share and comment. And so when we get so mad, because even I mentioned like the manosphere, I don't watch that stuff. Like I don't comment. I don't share. I'm not going to be a part of promoting an ideology that does not support what I want. What I want 100%. Are happy couples. 100%. That's what I want. I want happy children. Yes, I want to strengthen community. So this is what, and I mean, even the title of this is "Why Are Men Misleading?" That was a rope in, because from the beginning we said that this is not all men, this is not all women, right? Exactly. We're both here representing both sides, but nonetheless, we both acknowledge that all parties have a role to play in this, and so we all have to take accountability. And as professional mental health counselors, as the therapists, as the social workers, we're trying to work in our community to make a difference. These are the people that you need to pay attention to. Absolutely.
And I think that was so powerful what you talked about with, you know, what we're consuming, and that your Instagram, you know, threads, they're called a feed, and it's what you're ingesting, and at a rapid pace. At a rapid pace, we have no idea how much we're actually taking in. We have no idea. We don't really take into consideration how much our relationships are now being conformed to expectations of, yo, I got to make sure that my Valentine's Day is popping because I got to take pictures. You know, like, I'm not even going to enjoy the candles and the rose petals because I got to come back outside, let you open the door, record it. You know what I'm saying?
Record, yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. I act like I'm surprised when I already saw the setup. You know what I'm saying? Like, do this whole thing, post it on social media, and then that relationship could expire.
Oh, how about this? How about this? I did the setup. I bought the flowers. I did the champagne, and I'm pretending like it's my man who did it because I want a profile in front for everybody who's following me and put on a show.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And we are living our lives for the gram. We're living our lives for the attention. We're living our lives wrapped around that. Even as it's so hot, I do want to take this question that came in and acknowledge it, because people who are here, I want to, you know, we want to share this space with you guys. We want to, if we catch your comments, we do want to, you know, actually engage with you guys. But go ahead, and if you have a specific question, you can press the button on the side with the question mark so that we can definitely catch it. So Walls Akins, or Atkins, I'm not sure how to say it, says, what do you think that makes a man mislead? And I actually pinned a comment which happens to flow very well, and that's from Imani in Touch. And she says, if a man is being misleading, oftentimes it's because they don't feel safe enough in the relationship to be honest, or they just don't know how to communicate. What are your thoughts about that?
I think that's a nice, safe answer, and that you know, that might be some cases. I think that she's caping from men in that particular response, which is okay, by the way. I'm not saying that in a negative way. Like, I cape for men sometimes too, because women be on that bull, and I'll cape for women sometimes because they be on that bull, right? I think that there's some validity in that. I also think that there are some men who believe if they are forthcoming about their circumstances, that they will be deemed unattractive and they will not have access to that woman. So I'll tell you that I have 2 kids instead of saying that I have 4 kids. I'll tell you I have 1 baby mom instead of saying I have 2 baby moms. I will tell you that I filed the divorce papers, and we might even be separated. but I ain't filed a thing yet. Like, I think it's because they know that their circumstances are not ideal. And because they want access to that woman, they are going to mislead. And again, for those who are just coming in, we're not talking about the blatant lie. Even those are blatant lies. But I'm not talking about blatant lies. You live with your wife and children, and you say you're absolutely single. Like, not the blatant liars. But misleading, I also think the other side of this coin is that I think that men believe that the women that they're seeking won't accept them under these particular circumstances. And sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But the thing that's more important than that is that you should give folks free will. Like, come on, man.
That part right there.
Let me choose. Let me decide. You live in your mother's basement right now, you're in transition. Let me choose. But lying to me is what's going to get you left over the particular circumstance at hand.
100%. It's the principle of the matter. 100%. Again, these are one of those things where I do my best because I'm not a man. I do not have a peen. I don't really know what it feels like to be a man, and I don't really get it. I like to be pretty honest. I like to be pretty upfront, probably to a fault, and that could be because of the profession that I'm in, that I see the benefit of it. But for some reason, a lot of men really do report a legit fear around being honest because they don't like the way women respond to the honesty. And a lot of times,
so if that's the case, then change your honesty, right? So if you are worried about the fact that this woman won't respond well to that you live with your mom, get a second job and move out. If she won't respond well to the fact that you have all this debt, pay down the debt. Like, if you're in some things you can't change, the amount of children you have, right? But if your truths are so shameful that you're afraid to share it because you don't want to see the reaction of that woman, or you don't want that woman not to mess with you, then change your truths. Get your life together. Don't hold me accountable and keep the truth from me because you're ashamed of your crap. Fix your crap.
100%. I don't disagree, but again, I don't. While I agree with the level up that men and women need to get to, and in this particular example, men need to get to, I don't know what that experience is like, and I'm not excusing it. What I'm saying, what I'm offering, is that when we're receiving information, how we handle it matters. Men get shamed for a lot, and and sometimes women forget that men have feelings and emotions, and they don't mind being disrespectful as hell, thinking that you're a guy. Don't act like I've legit seen women call a man the B word.
A bitch. Yep.
Oh, you acting like a B right now. Well, in that case, I'll just keep my honesty, my truth to myself. So I'm not saying I don't want to hold up the flag and the banner. I'm just saying that if women at large, right? I'm not talking about me and you, because I think that you and I, we have an understanding, and we've been doing this work, and we do our own personal work. And so we just, and there are a lot of people like that. But if women are requiring and asking for men to be a certain way, then they need to be a safe space for that. If women are asking for men to be emotionally available, then they need to be prepared for that. Like when Devon Franklin had his picture that he took down of him crying, he took a picture of himself when he finished crying. He didn't even take a picture while he was crying. He didn't even take a video while he was crying. But apparently he broke the internet because he took a picture of himself crying and posted it months later. And I'll say this, y'all. If I was Devon Franklin's friend, I would have said, don't post that picture.
Yep.
But if I was Devon Franklin's coach, and he said he took, I'm just going to make up a story because I don't know why he posted it really and truly. But he said, I took the picture because I wanted to see myself crying. I've never really seen myself like this. And I took this picture and I found it to be freeing. And I want to share this with the world. I would share both sides. Do you understand that you're sharing this with the world that will tear you down as quickly as they build you up? Are you okay with the consequences of that? And if he said he would be, if he wanted to experience it or experiment, I would say push the button and dare to be bold.
So I support the general vision that you have in regards to creating a space so men can feel more comfortable and so they can be expressive. However, I would be remiss if I ignored the fact that men created the stigma for themselves. And I'm not talking about black men. I'm not talking about men in 2022. I'm talking about men as like cavemen and beyond, right? Like they want to be the conquerors and they want to be the hunters and they want to be masculine and they want to run society, right? And they want to purposefully, and this is historical to now, right? They want to purposely keep themselves in a position of power. You can't have this desire, right? To continue to be in a position of power and be quote unquote strong and define what strength is, because men run our society, right? That's the society that we live in. And then also be upset at the same time that you don't have the opportunity to be vulnerable. Like, you can't have it both ways. And again, I'm not talking about the men right now in this moment. They didn't create the society that we're in, but they're a part of keeping it up. They benefit from being a man in our society. And I'll also say, I'm not necessarily talking about black men, because black men don't necessarily, you know what I mean? But generally speaking, for men. So you can't be mad that you were born into the privilege of being a man. 100%.
That is a
and
fact.
then the downside is the smaller downside is that you don't get to be vulnerable. Well, then you could be a part of the society that shifts it, right? It's kind of like white privilege. Like, white folks are born into white privilege, and then the little times where things are inconvenient for them is, well, guess what? How are you shifting the dynamic so that there's no such thing as white privilege? How are you as a man shifting the dynamic so there's no such thing as male privilege? And then that way you would have the freedom and the flexibility to express yourself. But your people historically have created this society, so live with it.
Right.
Or change it.
I totally agree. I'm going to take some of these comments here. Mothers and fathers before now didn't cultivate spaces for men to be vulnerable. I feel like people, this is Bahatinu. Sorry for butchering your name. I feel like people who don't care about what others think of them get pretty far. And I think, I think we're in the process of being, literally the key word here is privilege. We are as society right now, have the privilege to have both, to be bold and emotional, to be disciplined and emotional. We get to live juxtaposition in both worlds at the same time in certain respects. And while I do agree that men do benefit from being able to not only live in a society where they can force themselves to cut their emotions off and bury themselves in work, right? Because they don't want to deal with their emotions. So they have that privilege and that expectation. And then on top of that, they're wired to not really emote like women are. They just don't have that much they don't have that much estrogen. Even when people are doing sex changes, they notice when they take those hormones, their emotions and their moods change. It's a real legit chemical reaction. At the same time, we do need to hold women accountable for the words that they use, that they downplay when they're talking to men. Like, they legit feel I don't think women understand that, and it's not fair, right? But a man's leash for being played is about this short. It's about this short. Women will take a whole lot more. Men just won't.
We've been socialized that way. That's not biological, Cassandra. We've been socialized to as women to accept abuses, however you might define that, depending on what decade that you're in, right? You're not historically as a woman, you're not allowed to have a bank account. You're not allowed to own property. You're not allowed to work. You can't even earn a wage. You can't write your own check.
You don't think at all biology plays a factor in it?
Well, I'm not a scientist, and you would know more than me because you've done more research. But I think it's way more socialized than it is biological. Again, based on no stats, no research.
Right. Sure.
I'm not a biologist in any regard, but we've been socialized to be pushovers. And so I say that we should unsocialize ourselves and not accept their crap. That's one of the things that actually grinds my gears about women. So I'm about to get into women right now, right? So women will say, oh, if a man cheats, we're expected to forgive. But then if I even send a flirty text message, it's the end of the world. If I even go to lunch with a male coworker, it's the end of the world. Well, whose fault is that? Who told you to accept the cheating? Instead of asking men, right? Because these are the bars. Instead of asking men to, I gotta go low so y'all can see me. Instead of asking men to lower their bar to accept cheating, right? Men's bar, women's bar. Yeah. I accept cheating, low bar. I don't accept any bullshit, high bar. Instead of asking men to lower their bar to accept bullshit, women should increase their bar so that they don't accept bullshit either. You can't be mad because you forgave him for some crap, and now you did a little minuscule in the end of the world. Yes, because he's smart. Step your game up. Hold him more accountable, or the hims thereafter. Don't ask him to lower his bar to match your BS. Raise yours and hold him just as accountable as he would hold you.
100%. The only pushback I have with that is that there are biological aspects that make it challenging for women to do that. Not that it's impossible. What it is that women, yes, women are designed, think about it, right? Caveman days, right? Women are designed to want to connect. Women are designed to want to feel protected and safe. And if you assign a man biologically so as a point of safety, he occurs as more safe to be with him than to leave. Meaning it's evil both ways. To not be with you feels evil. It hurts. It's painful. I can't take the pain. To be with you, it's painful. It hurts. But which of the two seems like it's the lesser painful one? In the moment, for biologically, in terms of like, do I leave the situation and become vulnerable? It seems for some women, biologically, I'm not talking about cheating. I'm talking about any time a woman is in a situation where one would think, yo, you could dip, you could leave. She feels unsafe to leave. She feels unsafe to not be with him. She experiences bouts of anxiety. And so do men. But sometimes their pride kicks in, the socialization kicks in, or the fear of like being played kicks in and compels them to move. But there are a lot of men who don't even report, just like there are more reports of women being sexually harassed. There are less reports of men being sexually harassed. Doesn't mean that men are not being sexually harassed. It means they're not reporting it.
I agree.
There are a lot of men who get cheated on, but they ain't finna tell a soul because they're so embarrassed. So there are men who legit get cheated on and they don't want to leave either. It's not just women who want to stay. It's women who are willing to say, it's women willing to admit that this man cheated on them and accept that spot of like, he did this to me, than a man being willing to say that and being challenged to leave.
Understood. Cass, can we take some questions because the sister's hungry?
Yes. So let me scroll some. Let me see. If they're trying to control you after cheating, then that person is a narcissist and they need to be dealt with by God. Totally agree. That's still socialization. That's a social program. I don't feel safe with the man who cheats on me and shows that he doesn't care about my feelings. Forgiveness is for oneself to be able to move forward for a better presence and not carry stress and bitterness. Let me see. Women have enough freedom and access now. Exactly. Precisely. 100%. This is Cafe Bustelli. Yeah, I like Cafe Bustello too. Women have enough freedom and access now to create 100%. And it's taking us time to come around that bend. That's the socialization part of it too. Now we do have that freedom and we do have that security that we're not as dependent on men. 1,000%. She gets it. She gets it. Or he gets it. It's because we're too codependent on the opinions and actions of others, which creates anxiety. That is true. Monet one owned the throne. I don't know what they're saying, but is that true? I'm not sure what she's or he's referring to. We can only control ourselves. Now, somebody mentioned something that is 100% true. That once we have like legit aspects of our lives that are set up, where we have a place to go to, he no longer needs to represent that be all end all. But it doesn't mean that it's not in our DNA. And on both sides, like I said, on both sides, don't think, I have a lot of guys that I coach that get cheated on. I know plenty of guys that's like, yo, my wife has stepped out, but you think I'm gonna let the other NIGGA have her? Guys get cheated on too. It's not like it don't happen, but I do agree that men try to treat it like it's a pass for them. Like, oh nah, like it hurts so much more being a guy, as if they know what it feels like being a woman to be cheated on like that.
Well, because the assumption is that if you allow this behavior to continue multiple times, then clearly it ain't that bad, right?
Exactly.
So and so that's reasonable. So if I'm trying to think of an example that's not like terrible, but you know, if I pierce my tongue one time, right, and then the piercing fell out and it closed, and I'm willing to do a second time, the assumption is that the first time it didn't really hurt that bad. Right. So I can understand why a man would feel like clearly it doesn't hurt women as much because it keeps sticking through it over and over and over again. That's a reasonable line of thinking.
Totally. That's fair. And I do agree with you. As women, we do deserve to acknowledge that there comes a point when your standards belong to you. And at some point, you need to tap into logic. So to this question, and I listen that you speak largely on, which is you like enjoy the aspect of you that's logical. Women need to take this privilege that we now have to no longer be dependent. So this question is saying, can you talk about how biology define gender roles and how we should lean into them? The fact of the matter is this: when you have an abundance of testosterone, it increases confidence, it increases physical strength, and it increases focus. That is a biological fact. Nobody can dispute that. That's it. And this proves to why when men can lift weights, why they can go at it longer, why their bodies repair quicker, and it also points to why men are able to lose weight quicker than women can, right? And this varies, right? No, every man has the same amount of testosterone. So there are going to be some guys who might have a softer chest. That's a man who might have a little bit more estrogen in his body, and women who might have a harder physique. She might have more testosterone in her body. She grows hair in all sorts of places, right? So nobody's just one thing. Where this comes into play in terms of like gender roles is the assumption that we are not, to what Alison said at the beginning, we are human beings. We have it all. We can experience the range of it all at different amounts. And so as an example, where a man who has testosterone and can never get pregnant, right? Can never get pregnant biologically, is the expectation that he should be the breadwinner, right? He should be the breadwinner. And if you're the breadwinner and you're never out of the workforce, it's only natural, you're not taking a pause out of the workforce, that your income should continue to increase. And so the thought is that this is why men make more money. How we should lean into or out of those roles is dependent on the person. One aspect of it is how we support women in the workforce to make sure that they're supported, that they're protected. That's one aspect of it. Another aspect for me, and then I hand this off to Alison, which is around emotions, which is around your EQ. What is your emotional intelligence around how you process your feelings? Because when men do not handle their emotions properly, what they do is that they leave. So I know a lot of people like to talk about society and, welfare, and that they push Black men out and so on and so forth. Then explain the Great Depression, when white men were leaving families. Men bounce. When their emotions get too high and they don't manage their emotions, they just clear cut leave their families. White men have done it. Black men do it. It's a problem. So people need, now that we're privileged, we're all working, we're all making money, okay, we want families, we need to learn on both ends how to manage our own emotions and support our partner's emotions. And that's the only way that I think that we can lean and work through these gender roles and not take things so personal. That's what I would say.
I agree.
So I have one more question, and we're going to let Alison go. Loud Silence says, how should men who have low sexual access justify dating women with more sexual partners than them? I'm sorry, what? How should men who have low sexual access?
I think he means if a dude has less bodies than his chick, how does he deal? I think that's what he's saying in an articulate way. The way that you deal
around that, I don't know if I'm the right person to answer that.
Well, I have a reel that kind of went wild around that, so I'll answer it very quickly, right? So if I'm understanding, and if maybe I'm oversimplifying, and I apologize in advance for my Brooklynness. So if a dude has less bodies,
no, that's not what he meant.
Okay, so then what?
Right. How should men who have low sexual access justify? I'm guessing, because I've heard red pill rhetoric around men who are less attractive or men who have less money and women who are beautiful. Like, let's say you and I, we have pretty privilege, right? We just have more men allegedly to pick from. I don't know if that's where he's trying to go with it. How should men who have low sexual access, I guess, access to women who want to bed with them, justify? Okay, he says yes. Okay, so that's okay. Justify dating women. So in other words, if a gentleman is not as attractive, and he wants to date a woman who has access to more men because she has pretty privilege, and he's not on the same wavelength, how should men who have low sexual access justify dating women with more sexual partners than them? So
I'm still a little lost, because
okay. So
if what you said made sense,
there's a 300-pound guy, right? unattractive, and he doesn't make a lot of money, but he wants to date you. Beautiful, 5'5" and brown eyes, cute thighs, and all of that, right? You have a myriad of men to choose from.
How does he stand out?
How can he justify? Is he justified in wanting to pursue and date you if you have all of these men who are pining after you? Not necessarily that you beg them. It has nothing to do with beg them. It's just you have options.
I mean, that's not what he said. He said more sexual partners than them. But if we're going to go with your question, which is a different version of what was said here, then how does a man who's not necessarily very attractive or have a lot of money get access to women who may have more access? You got to stand out. You have to stand out. So number one, you have to have confidence. So you need to present as though you know that you're the sugar honey iced tea. You need to present as though you have all of the answers to every problem that she's ever faced, that you can be supportive, that you can be loving, that you're financially secure. Yes, I'll say it. I'm going to tell the truth, right? You need to be able to stand out from other men, that you can protect and provide and profess. That is how you're going to get the attention of a woman who you believe is out of your league, if that's the question.
Yeah, I agree. I think that if a guy, I think confidence goes a long way. And I think that men need to recognize that there's nothing wrong with a woman who wants to date a man who's financially secure and financially independent. That does not make me a gold digger. It does not make me a user. It makes me want to be secure, and it makes me want to build legacy. I don't owe you. No woman and no man owes anybody anything. So if you're already at a deficit of not being attractive, right? So an attractive man who's broke is more likely to bag girls than an unattractive man who might be middle class. Then you're just gonna have to boost up your personality some, and that doesn't make me a bad person. In no way are we shaming men who want to date women who have nice bodies or who are physically fit. Like, what are we really talking about? What's a big red flag for a man to move on from a relationship when he really loves the woman, but she's not applying the same energy? One thing is, check if you have a red flag within yourself. Are you communicating what energy looks like for you? Like, how can she show you that she's interested? Ask her if she's interested and see how you are leading in the relationship. Sometimes men will use gifts or external factors to get a girl interested because he already feels like she's not. If you're there, pull back a little bit and see if she leans in or not. See if she responds or not. See if she asks where you're at or not. And then you can explain to her, hey, I didn't think that you were interested. So are you interested? And just ask. Outside of that, if a woman is not applying the same energy, like I said, you have to communicate that. And also, I tell men a lot, choose a woman who chooses you. Sometimes guys go for the girl that they're just like, oh my God, I just like her so much. But she's not choosing you. You know, she's not really leaning in. So let her go.
Cass, can we make this the last question? My stomach is blue.
Yes. Okay, so this is Angie. Angie the honeybee. Is it possible men are misleading from a place of not knowing himself versus trying to be deceitful? Everybody does that. A lot of people do it. We don't even realize it. That's why relationships burst the bubble in your character. So that's it right there.
I would say, though, that misleading, and I don't know the definition. I'm not in a position to Google it right now, but I'm under the impression that misleading has a connotation that is purposeful. I knew the direction I really wanted to go in, but I'm telling you something else. So if my belief of the definition or my memory of the definition of misleading is correct, then the answer to your question would be no. But if that's not kind of the understanding of misleading, then I think that men can tell you one thing because, as Cassandra said early in the game, that's what they really believed in that moment. But something has caused a shift, whether it's the behavior of that woman, whether it's circumstances in his own life that caused the shift. But what I will say again is still their responsibility to share that with you.
100. That part right there, I think, is the golden nugget of the lives. When he recognizes there's a shift, he bears the burden and the responsibility to be honest and cut that cord. Yep. So you guys, we're going to end this live. Alison, my girl, thank you so much. I really enjoy having you here, having this conversation. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you guys next time.